Call this meeting to order. Join me for the prayer and the pledge. Lord, thank you for this day and for the blessings that you've given us, for this community and for the great place it is to live and to work and to raise a family. We thank you for all those that labor to keep this place the place that it is, for our first responders, for our healthcare professionals, for all those, for our teachers, for all those that work on a daily basis to provide the quality of life that we have here in our community. Pray your continued blessings on all that we do. Give us discernment and wisdom as we make decisions for our community today. And bless all those that are here and those that are traveling. In Jesus' name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. All right, we've got action items. Welcome you to the June 8th meeting, workshop meeting here at the airport. Action items, Ms. Tucker.
Thank you. We have the FY24 budget resolutions for water, stormwater, community investment trust, and city schools for your approval today. I put a corrected exhibit for the community investment trust on your desk there. It's just correcting a clerical error. The school's budget also includes a one-time funding resolution and subrecipient agreement with the city. The city expects to receive about $141,000 this year from an opioid class action lawsuit settlement. Staff is proposing to transfer this to city schools. I'm happy to answer any questions. Mr. Gore and Dr. Duke are here as well.
All right. It has been asked that we move items E and F to the beginning of our discussion, so if there's any discussion related to those particular items.
Yeah, I would ask that we defer those particular items around the one-time $140,000 opioid distribution money. Opioids are awful. I've lost a child to it 10 years ago, this 4th of July. And I know that the police and Dr. Duke and everybody within the government want to see this money invested in the best way possible. So I would just ask that we defer those two particular items around this $140,000 so that we can take the time to kind of properly say, okay, what's the best use, the best investment of this money? And maybe it's the same investment. Maybe it's the same thing. But I would just ask for a little more time so that it comes back to us in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, when we've got all 7 members of the council present.
All right. Go ahead. Question?
So, and I'm sorry for the loss of your son, I'm sorry. So in this interim, while we're waiting, is it anything that we need to be looking into as far as giving more or giving less, or how we distribute it, would you like to see?
No, it's the same amount of money. It's, as I understand, we're getting, $140,000, and then in subsequent years, it's a much smaller amount. So my thinking is with this amount of money, what's the best use of it so that it pays us dividends in year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, year 6, is kind of my thinking, versus maybe the intended use right now they were looking at. And again, like I just said, maybe it is the same use. Maybe it is, 2 mental health counselors. Maybe that is the best use, or maybe it's for something else. That's all I'm saying, is just take a little more time to look at it and where we can invest it and use it. That's why I'm asking for those 2 items to be deferred to a subsequent meeting.
I don't have a problem with it. Adam, do we make a motion on this to defer it?
Yeah, there should be a motion to defer, a second, and then a vote.
Let me, question, can we approve the school budget with the exception of these 2 items?
Yeah, you would just need to you would have to file, make a motion to amend the budget to pull back that money from the budget that amendment would have, motion to amend would have to have a second and a vote. And you would need to do that both for the city schools, that'd be Resolution 23R15, as well as when we get down to item 2A for the city's budget to make that amendment. But those, you can always come back in a subsequent meeting, whether that's 2 weeks or 4 weeks or 5 weeks, and address how that $140,000 is going to be allocated. And if it goes back to city schools, you make an amendment to the city schools budget and to the city budget as well. I
Then
think
I'll
that's.
change my
would you
motion.
That's
agree with
correct,
that?
yes. Yep.
Okay, yep.
I changed my motion. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the city budget, the school budget, and taking those two items out for deferment at this time until further discussion. Is
Okay.
that correct?
So I think there's a motion to
To defer.
defer the
Yeah.
two items, and then a separate motion to amend the city schools budget with the 140,000 one-time funding.
Okay, I'll go
Pulled
back to my
out.
first motion then. Okay, I make a motion that we defer the two items until
a
further
motion.
discussion.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Ms. Saberwater? Aye. Ms. Gels Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
All right, now.
Vice
to-
Mayor, if I can't, my only request would be that we stay on top of this, and I know Dr. Duke will, force us to stay on top of this, but since school starts soon and the current proposal is for hiring, I wanna make sure if we choose to do these counselors, that we can get them in place before the fall, so.
Can I change my motion then and say something? Okay, that I make a motion that we defer these two items and bring them up in 2 weeks for discussion and approval or disapproval.
Well, I think now we're voting on the resolution for the city schools budget. We could move that up to now and I guess consider that recommendation with the,
I think.
I don't think it's a problem for Dr. Duke if we need a few extra weeks to make sure we get a good plan in place.
okay.
So we'll certainly bring that plan back as soon as it is ready and available for council discussion. But I don't believe he's necessarily in a time crunch. Sure.
Yes.
Let's just ask him, that sounds great.
That's a good point.
I appreciate the work to expedite it, but I agree with Aaron. As long as we get a good plan, I think that's what's probably most important. So we will make sure that we have the supports we need in place for that. And so I appreciate the 2 weeks, but I don't necessarily think that's necessarily needed right now.
Okay.
As far as just
Right.
making sure we have a good plan in place.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Gels Harris and I like plans. We wanna know when it's gonna be back.
Well, there was definitely some discussion at school board level to provide these positions. The dollars that were made available by the city were, fortunate, but I don't think that necessarily guides the commitment to mental health professionals in our schools, so.
Yeah, the only reason why I put a time on it, I just know on the council, so many times we say we're gonna come back to something and 2 months have passed, 3 months, and then we never come back. I just wanna make sure we come back.
And I believe what Mr. Shacklett's referring to is that I think those positions are moving forward regardless.
Yeah.
It's just depending on which funding source is gonna pay for it.
Great.
All right, well, since it's on our minds, let's go ahead and consider item 3, Resolution 23R15, City School Budget with the correction of our ENF being pulled, deferred from them. Do I hear a motion to consider that?
Second?
Motion a second? Please call the roll. Oh, excuse me.
I think you need a motion to amend that budget to remove that $140,000.
Make
Correct?
a motion to,
They can do it the way that they're doing it. I think they can make the motion to approve the budget with that change in it. I believe that's
Okay,
okay.
all right, we'll
I can
cross
make-
our Ts and dot our Is.
That's fine.
If you want them to vote on it twice, I'm totally fine with that too.
If it's as amended without that 140, then fine, yeah.
It's understood that that's
I make the motion just to make it official. I'll make the motion that we approve item C, 23-R-15, city schools budget, less deferring the 140,000 to come up at a future date prior to the start of school with a decision. Is that acceptable?
That's a mouthful, and I second.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please call the roll, Ms. Brown.
Ms. Averwater,
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris, Mr. Maxwell,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet.
All right, item A, Resolution 23R13, Water Resources Budget Resolutions. Is there a motion or is there discussion?
If no discussion, I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion and second, please call the roll.
Ms. Averwater,
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet.
Aye. B, Resolution 23R14, Stormwater Utility Management. Any discussion? Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Motion and second, please call the roll.
Ms. Averwater,
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris, Mr. Maxwell,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet.
Aye. All right, now the adoption of our fiscal year budget and related ordinances.
We'll need to approve item D as well.
Yeah, item D.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. Resolution 23R18, Community Investment Trust. Is there any discussion?
If there is none, I'll move for approval.
Motion and a second?
Second.
Motion and second, please call the roll.
Ms. Averwater,
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell, Vice Mayor Shacklet.
Aye. All right, now, the adoption of the fiscal year budget and related ordinances, second and final reading. Ms. Tucker.
Thank you. You have the second reading of the city's budget and tax rate ordinances today. I sent the updated communication and list of changes yesterday and printed those out for you as well. We'll also need to include the change that council just approved for, removing the school's one-time funding of $140,000. The other changes listed there for you, one is related to the wayfinding study. Planning received an updated estimate for that study. It indicates a need to increase that budget by $75,000. We need to increase the ARPA revenues and school ARPA transfer by $63,000 to match the school's budget. And police needs to rebudget $162,000 in equipment that will not be received before year end. This will come out of the FY '23 carry forward assigned fund balance. That still leaves us not using unassigned fund balance for FY '24. I recommend approving these changes before approving the budget and tax rate ordinances on second reading.
All righty, we'll consider ordinance 23-018 with the revisions. Is there any discussion?
So moved.
Motion and second? Motion and second.
This one, you do actually need to
Vote on the
vote on the
revisions.
amendments first.
All right, we'll need to vote on the amendment. Amendments that are presented, let's have a motion to approve the amendments. Motion and a second?
Second.
Second, please call the roll.
Ms. Averwater, Ms. Gels Harris, Mr. Maxwell,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet.
Aye. Okay, now, the budget, we'll consider that ordinance 23-018, fiscal year 24 budget. Do I hear a motion to approve with revisions?
So moved.
Motion and a second? Please call the roll.
Ms. Averwater,
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet.
Aye. All right, ordinance 23-019, tax rate. Any discussion? No discussion, do I hear a motion?
Move for approval.
Move for approval and second.
Second.
Motion and second, please call the roll, Ms. Brown.
Ms. Averwater,
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris, Mr. Maxwell,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet.
All right, Community Investment Program Funds Transfer, Ms. Tucker.
Thank you again. You have an updated communication for this as well on your desk. The first item is for Brinkley Road. We are expecting higher construction costs for this project, and so we're requesting a transfer of $320,000, which will come from the completed project at Old Fort and Chafin Place. Mr. Griffith, I believe, is available to answer any questions about this project. We're also requesting to use about $207,000 in fire CIP funds for replacement vehicles that were originally budgeted out of ARPA funds. We'll then use those ARPA funds to purchase fire special operations equipment instead. I'm happy to answer any questions on these items.
All right, are there any discussion?
I love being under budget on the first project, so, not on the second one. Come on, guys.
All right. More discussion? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Motion approved, second? Motion second, please call the roll.
Ms. Saverwater?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye. Resolution 23R16, other post-employment benefits, fiscal year '24, Ms. Brown.
This is the annual election to provide post-employment benefits to retirees and long-term disabled employees of the city and water, stormwater. Benefits include health, dental, and vision, and will cover retirees who have 15 years of service and have been covered by the benefits plan for the previous 5 years. Eligibility with this resolution for this year is updated to include all retirees, provided they have met all other requirements to receive benefits.
All right, is there any discussion? Do I hear a motion?
Approval? I move for approval.
Second.
Motion second, Ms. Brown, please call the roll.
Ms. Saverwater?
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye. Fiscal year '23 annual audit contract, Ms. Brown.
This is our annual audit contract with Job Hastings for the preparation of the city's annual report. The amount of $168,500 is the same as the FY22 audit. There's also an additional amount of $15,000 for a newly mandated state account crosswalk. The amount comes out of the Finance FY24 operating budget.
Any discussion?
Question, I guess, for Ms. Brown. This is only for specific. This isn't like city schools and a few other departments, correct?
The city schools have their own state mandated crosswalk that will be in their audit contract for this year. It does cover most of the other funds under the city. It won't cover things like the pension fund because of the way that it's presented, but everything else with the city will be covered. The water department's covered under it, and part of that $15,000 will actually be billed back to the water department.
Doesn't include Evergreen?
Not anymore.
Okay.
Any more discussion? Do I hear a motion?
So move.
Second.
Motion second, please call the roll.
Ms. Saverwater?
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris? Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye.
Just one question, Mayor, Vice Mayor. Just out of curiosity, why did we pull out of the Evergreen?
They wanted to, there's a long legacy of how that was owned with a lot of uncertainty. The Evergreen Committee, I forget what they were called, but the Evergreen Committee requested that they be independent and run on their own. So the city agreed to that
I know,
several months ago.
I know when, a couple of years back, when we got ready to build the police building, we, got permission to take down their fence and promised them that we'd build the fence back. And we never built it back. Why was that?
I don't remember all the details about it. I know they asserted that we promised to build it back, but I'm not sure that that was actually how the whole played out. I don't remember the whole circumstances on there. I think it seems like it's been resolved. I'm looking for the chief, I don't know where he went. He was here. He ran out? Oh. It seems like it's been resolved. It hadn't been an issue for a long time, so they must have figured that one out.
I know a couple of weeks ago, I was at the cemetery and, the lady said we never did pay them for that fence. So I just wondered.
I'd have to look into it again. You know, I think there may have been a misunderstanding in there, but it wasn't. It seemed to have been resolved as far as I understood it some time ago.
All righty. Runway Taxiway A, apron pavement rehabilitation construction.
One second. When you check into that, Mr. Tyndall, let me know.
Okay.
This is the contract for the work authorization for barge design services to come in and administer the work that will be done on the runway, taxiway, and apron area that is scheduled to begin June 19th and be about a 30-day period in which the airport will be closed. There'll be some periods after that that work will continue on the airport, but we'll be able to continue operations. The cost of that is $123,494,000, and 95% of that is covered by our FAA and state grants that we've received on this project.
Any questions or discussion?
In theory, how long should this last? I mean, I know you don't want to shut down the airport for 30 days, so is this like a once every 10 years?
Yes. Yeah, and what we try to do is, in working with our state aeronautics division, we have a statewide maintenance plan for all of our pavement. They've cataloged all of our airports, and so we're trying to rotate every 5 years or so, some crack or seal coat, and then come back on a 10-year period or 15 and really do resurfacing, milling and resurfacing. So we're trying to be more, unlike roads that usually get milled up every so often, we try to milk the pavement for all it's worth.
Okay. You're not like TDOT is what you're saying.
That's right.
And you're doing a great job out here, Chad. It looks very nice.
Thank you.
I'm proud to say this is our airport, yeah. Very nice job.
The trailers went yesterday. That was a big help.
Sometimes less is more,
That's right.
especially when it's trailers.
If there's no other discussion, I move for approval.
Second.
Motion second, please call the roll.
Ms. Averwater?
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
All right, Town Creek Task Orders 3 and 4. Mr. Moore.
Morning, Vice Mayor, members of the council. Did want to introduce myself. I haven't presented before this body before. Gabriel Moore, engineer with the Planning Department. Here today to present Task Orders 3 and 4 for the Town Creek Phase 2 project. You may recall back in January of this year, the council approved the Master Services Agreement along with Task Orders 1 and 2. And those are both being handled by Griggs and Maloney, our consultant on that. And the first two task orders provided for building characterization and site survey. Those are ongoing right now. These task orders will provide, Task Order 3 specifically will provide for geotechnical exploration and environmental soil sampling for a total task order cost of $48,000. Task Order 4 will provide for master planning and due diligence for the project. And that task order is totaling $84,000. I would ask that you approve both Task Orders 3 and 4, and they'll both be funded by ARPA funds. And I'm available for questions if you have any.
Any questions?
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion second, please call the roll.
Ms. Averwater?
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
You did good, Gabriel. All right, workshop item, CIP reallocation. Ms. Brown.
This is just an update on the CIP that's been reallocated since the last workshop meeting.
All right. Any questions, comments? All right, that's for information only. We've got Project Keystone, Broad Street Development. Mr. Huddleston.
Good morning still, Vice Mayor Shacklet and members of council. We're here today to present the Project Keystone as a workshop item. HRP proposed a redevelopment, mixed-use redevelopment of the city-owned properties along Broad Street. These properties between South Church and West Vine Street have been identified as a candidate for redevelopment in our Bottoms redevelopment plan. City staff and the development team have worked over the last few months to revise the program book and also to draft a development agreement and purchase and sale agreement. And so the development team will have a presentation in just a couple minutes on the proposed development, and then in your agenda package was also a draft of the development agreement and purchase and sale agreement for the land. And we are available to discuss, hear your comments and thoughts about those in advance of a future council meeting. Our intent would be to bring these back at the next available council meeting, including a summary of the development program, if that's appropriate, at the next meeting. So the development team is here. They'll start with a short presentation. After we do that, then we'd entertain questions and discussions about the presentation, the development, the purchase and sale agreement, or the development agreement. And at this time, I'd like to ask Matt Taylor to come up for the presentation and also to introduce the development team.
Thank you, Sam. Vice Mayor Shacklet, members of council, I'm Matt Taylor of SCC. I'm accompanied today by the development team that I'll introduce more in detail in just a second. But we did have a brief presentation over what we've called the Broad Street redevelopment project. I think that you'll remember we were here in October of last year. At that time, we had developed a concept plan of the project. We wanted to make sure that you were in general agreement that we were headed in the right direction with that plan. Coming out of that meeting, we felt like we had kind of have a thumbs up, and so in the following 6 to 7 months, we have fine-tuned that plan. We've also spent extensive time working with city staff to develop that development agreement, as well as the contract or purchase sale agreement that Mr. Huddleston mentioned, as well as start to lay the groundwork for the TIF. And so we did want to bring this back to you today ahead of any sort of vote and go back over those plan details and hit some high points on the development agreement. The development team is the exact same as what was here in October. Each one of us are thankful to still be on the team. To start with is my client, the development partners only project, that is HRP. Each one of them are here today. I'll ask them to stand up. We've got Dean Montgomery, Ryan Little, Rob Turner, and Todd Seifert. Each of those have a different background. Some of those are construction, some of those are finance, some of those are strictly development. So they bring something unique and have a long history of development inside of Middle Tennessee. Their most recent project in Murfreesboro was the Banks, which is located at the intersection of Highway 99 and Warrior Drive. There they partnered up with the late Mr. Mark Pirtle. It's turned out to be a beautiful project, I think. All that has come together very nicely over there. Their financial partner is represented by Mr. Al Miller of First Financial Bank. Al and his bank have done multiple projects with HRP around Middle Tennessee and has committed to this project as well. There are several thresholds before the bank can give a full commitment, such as the development agreement, the contract, the TIF. All those are very common thresholds for any bank on any project prior to a full funding commitment. One thing that I think Al's bank brings that is unique to this area is they've done several TIFs. Most of our local bankers are not familiar with those. So I think Al brings something unique that brings an attribute to this project. I think most of these guys are very familiar to you. Some of these pictures are dated a few years, obviously, but.
How old is that picture, Matt?
I don't know, but that's a reason I have not done a new headshot, so. Myself and Bart Klein at Klein Sweeting, we've done probably between 15 and 20 projects around Middle Tennessee over the last 5 to 10 years. So we're very comfortable working with each other. We've got a proven track record. Of course, I think everybody here knows Mr. Harney with the Parks Group. We think that his history, his local knowledge, his ability to bring tenants and buyers to projects is vital to the success of this project. And then, of course, Mr. Reed is helping us out with all the legalities of the purchase sale, the TIF, and the development agreement, working closely with city's legal department. Some of HRP's most recent projects around, I think all of these are in Middle Tennessee, and just shows you the scope and scale and quality of the projects that they have the ability and proven track record of performing. They are also well under design and nearing start of construction of a large mixed-use project in Huntsville, Alabama, that is very similar in scale and quality and really just total scope to what we're proposing here in Murfreesboro. As Mr. Huddleston said, the city actually commissioned a study in the historic bottoms area back in, I think, 2015, 2016. That was completed and adopted by the city in early 2017. Our project, we see as the first big piece of that study coming to fruition. That is giving a new face and gateway to our downtown as you come in off Church Street from the interstate. This will aid in reconnecting downtown and the bottom study, which if you were a part of that was one of the big vision pictures. I think there was about 3 things that come out of that. That connection was one of the most important parts of that study process. And then, what we think is very important is we're gonna bring a lot more population, a lot more people downtown, which will bring vibrancy, which will help our existing and our future businesses downtown. So we're very excited about all of those elements that this project can bring. We want to give a few examples. If you wanted to drive around, see some projects that would be of similar scope or nature within about 30 or 45 minutes of here. One of those is up in Hendersonville at Indian Lake Village. The other is over in Franklin at Harpeth Square, and then Berry Farms in Franklin. Each of these are mixed-use projects. They are integrated vertically as well as horizontally. You'll notice those average incomes are extremely high. Those are people that are choosing to live in this sort of environment. It's not people that don't have any other options. Those folks obviously have a lot of options on where they can live. There is a growing desire in Middle Tennessee to live in a mixed-use project like we're proposing here today. We've also done an extensive market study just to show that there is a unmet demand for this housing downtown. The bottom line, or line 14, where it shows 571 residential demand that's unmet. An important part of that is that's assuming that One East College is under construction. Each of you intimately know that it is not under construction today. So that unmet demand is actually closer to a little bit over 750 units that could be built downtown and absorbed per this market study today. This just shows kind of how our project has morphed based on guidance that we heard from City Council at previous meetings, as well as our interaction with staff. And so we've reduced our for lease product by about 30% from the original proposal. We have increased our for sale condos by 3 to 4-fold on this project. We have increased the number of hotel rooms on this project by 2 to 2.5. We have maintained the same retail or commercial space throughout. We've also increased the number of parking spaces that this project provides, so it is self-parked on site. And then we also introduced a affordability option on the residential through our Hometown Heroes program. That was not in there originally. We heard that affordability is a key component. It's becoming more important throughout our city, really all of Middle Tennessee. And so we've added that to both the for rent and the for sale products here. Our project will design and construct the improvements at the intersection of Broad Street and Vine Street, which will improve the alignments of those streets. We'll also widen those, gives more laneage. And then additionally, we will add additional turn lanes on Church Street to the north of Broad, in between there and Sevier, or what I call the upstairs entrance to the city garage. Internal to the project, we will have very generous pedestrian ways with wide sidewalks, grass strips, street trees. We will have formal public spaces and a few spaces throughout the development. And again, we'll be self-parking this with parking garages with limited amounts of surface parking spread around. The plan itself is largely the same as what it was when we were here in October. The hotel is still located at the intersection of Vine and Broad. The next building to the southeast of that is still what I've termed the condo building. I think we've moved around the, where that ground floor retail or commercial is going to be located a little. Then the intersection of Church and Broad, shown here. Well, I guess that one's touchscreen, but it is largely dominated on the ground floor by ground floor retail and commercial. And then on the opposite side of Church Street, that's where we're going to relocate WGNS. There will also be a residential building there as well. So the heart of this is exactly the same as it was previous. I think that we have increased the amount of parking in those parking garages, and those buildings may have tweaked in shape, and I think we moved our pool around a little bit, but the bulk of the project is still very consistent with what you had seen in October. Overall, our goals are, for the project, are similar to what I've already stated. We want to bring a new face and a gateway to downtown. That'll be a source of pride for the project, the design team, so we want to be a part of that. We want to bring that hotel that the city's been begging for, been teased with for many years to our downtown. That's an exciting element of the project. We're also looking forward to the connectivity between downtown and the bottoms and getting that part, that scope kicked off. And then to my knowledge, this is the first project in Murfreesboro outside of a habitat project that has committed to a affordability portion of their project. I don't know of any other project that has done that. Our amenities here are going to be at or above market level, market demands for similar type of projects. These amenities will be a little different than a lot of the projects that you see. Most of our projects in Murfreesboro are more of a suburban nature. These are going to be geared more toward an urban, tight, compact space. So here's some inspirational pictures. Klein Sweeney has spent a lot of time downtown. They actually did the rehab on the historic courthouse, so they're very familiar with our architecture in and around this site. And so they've set forth some standards in this development program to make sure it fits our downtown, as well as sets the standard for future development and redevelopment in this area. These are some examples of some of those public spaces I mentioned earlier. So again, they are urban spaces. They'll be tight, compact. There'll be a lot of activity, a lot of energy that goes with these spaces. This is kind of a bird's eye view here. You'll see the hotel on the left, and you'll work across the screen to Church and Broad on the right-hand side. The building with the blue, that is the condo building. We have, the rest of these buildings are 4 stories in nature. This one, we've reserved the right to go to a 5th story, and that is really if our pre-sales are strong enough on the condos, we would need the 5th floor to get to that 100 unit count. These were all very consistent, I think identical to what you saw in October. So this is looking from the intersection of Church and Broad. You'll see that future pedestrian bridge over Broad Street there, really how this will reshape that view of downtown. This is moving down Broad Street. This is that lower level entrance to the city's parking garage. We're going to maintain that entrance. Our pool will flank the right-hand side here. Condo building is on the left. And then this is at Vine and Broad, so the hotel will be on the left, condo building back on the right. You also get a good view of what this public space will turn out like. And then early on, there were some concerns about blocking visibility to the city hall, the cupola, and so the architect did this study based on our projected building heights, kind of looking from the intersection of Broad and Church. You can see that really the ground elevation, the change in elevation coming up Church Street works in our favor here, so it's not becoming a hindrance to that view shed. There's also been a lot of concern with the timing and start of construction and the continuation of construction with the project. So we have worked extensively with staff to develop a thorough construction schedule. Based on that, we've developed project milestones that have come back in and allowed the city to put clawback opportunities inside of this purchase sale agreement. One of the first things that you'll see us start on with this project would be the WGNS reconstruction, which would be on the east side of Church Street. we have to move them before we can complete our demolition on the west side. So that would be one of the first things that you see happening on this project. The development agreement, just a couple of major bullet points. You know, we're asking for a 20-year TIF. We have made commitments on the milestones and the clawbacks that I mentioned. Again, the development agreement will outline our commitment to design and construct the roadway improvements. And then this development agreement will also set forth conditions of approval or conditions of closing for both parties. So there are certain things the city will have to do, there are certain things that HRP will have to do before we can get to the closing. Did want to share some details of that development agreement. These are the exhibits, so really just outlining what property we would be purchasing. So everything here in gray, it's just under 8 acres in size. Our development agreement, again, holds us accountable to the quality and character of our project. So we're including everything that you've seen inside of this presentation as exhibits to the development agreement. Again, one of the exhibits is the development schedule. The scope of the roadway improvements will be part of that development agreement. We've also outlined critical tasks or a critical, kind of a checklist to get from here to a closing or even further to a C of O inside these exhibits. We've also included exhibits on correspondence between City of Murfreesboro, Rutherford County, and TDOT relative to grants and pending grants for the pedestrian bridge over Broad. We've included exhibits regarding how we're self-parking on site. We're not relying on the city's parking garage to meet our parking demand, nor are we doing a shared parking analysis. So in short, we're buying just under 8 acres of property. We're going to pay $5 million for that property. We will design and construct the improvements per the development agreement. So everything you just saw will be a part of that development agreement, and then we'll hold closing on or before or within 10 days after a PUD and TIF approval. So I'll be happy to answer any questions. We've got the rest of the design team here. If I can't answer it, they will be happy to. But we're looking forward to helping the city really kickstart the vision they had in the bottom study, going on 6 to 7 years ago. So really excited. Between that and the Town Creek that you just talked about, I think can really create a new face to our downtown, draw a lot more interest.
Thank you. Any questions, comments?
I have a couple.
Yes, ma'am.
I know I probably missed some things, so,
I'm happy to repeat myself.
okay. I know you said the first thing, if approved, you all are gonna do is relocate WGNS.
Yes, ma'am.
And once you do that, how long do you think it'll take approximately to reconstruct GNS?
I think that we had projected that at about a 12 to 15-month build cycle. Yes, sir. Right at 12 months.
And then once you do that, what would be the next thing you're gonna work on?
I think we would continue on that same block, and then once WGNS is moved, we can complete demolition at the old police headquarters and all of those buildings through there, and we'd immediately move over there. We would start with the parking garage because of the way the construction is. You have to start with that. I need to build around that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Your amenities, I didn't hear you say, and you may have, are you gonna have charge stations for the electric cars anywhere?
I don't know that we have gotten that detailed, but are you doing that? Yes. There you go. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because I know that's the going thing now. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, that's it for me.
Could you speak to the hometown heroes? Who are they and how are you going to identify them?
Yes, sir. So, Hometown Heroes allows you to give a below market rate rent or for sale to police, firefighters, and teachers. And so for the for rent portion, we're going to take 5% of our units and deduct those 30% over what everybody else, or under what everybody else is paying. On the for sale, we're going to take 20% or 5% of those and deduct it 20%. So it will have some very significant savings. That 30 and 20% is not going to be a small number.
piggyback off of that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let's say I'm a firefighter, and I purchase one of the buildings,
Yes, ma'am.
and I move out. When you all resell it, let's say to another firefighter or police officer, would they be allowed to get the same discount? Would that be a permanent discount in that area for all?
So if you're buying it, then I believe that for the for sale units, we only control the first sale, is my understanding. Anything after that firefighter or policeman, if they're buying that, they would, I believe they could recapture that increase, but we can get that confirmed for you.
Okay, what about if I'm renting it?
If you're renting it, then we will hold that, it's a permanent hold. That part doesn't change. We lose the ability on the for sale to control that afterwards, but it may be a deed restriction thing too, so we can get that question answered for you unless somebody knows that today. I don't know that answer,
Well,
so.
if this is approved, I really would like to see this section remain for the firefighters and the police officers, the teachers, you know, let that continuously be their domain as far as the space and also as far as them getting a discount. Because to me, it doesn't make sense if you give a discount to the first firefighters or police or teachers, and then they have to move or whatever, and then we're gonna go full value on that. That just doesn't make sense to me. So I would like to see that be for all, an ongoing thing for the people.
Okay, we will look, some of that goes back to the legalities and the laws, so we're gonna have to figure that part out. I'm not sure how we would enforce that, but it may be something controlled by the deed, but we'll get that answer for you.
And, yeah, and put it in the deed. To me, it reminds me something like, housing, you know, I've lost my thinking, but, you know, bottom line, I'd like to see that be an ongoing section for these people.
Okay?
So the four lease, 5% of 239, that's 11 to 12 units. So those 11 to 12
Yes, sir.
would permanently have that little asterisk for firefighter, police, teachers.
Yes, sir.
Whether that's a city or county teacher.
Yes, sir.
Or college professor, I guess. For sale, I kind of understand, once Joe Smith buys a unit, that's Joe Smith's unit, they can sell it to whomever they want to. It kind of goes away from my view. The boutique hotel.
Yes, sir.
In the document, it said something about a mid-scale or I can't remember the exact. Oh, Sam.
Yes,
So-
actually Craig may be able to better.
There's actually a service, I think it's Smith's Travel, that categorizes hotels. So there is a category that you can reference, and usually in development agreements, if we're talking about hotel, we'll categorize it according to the industry standard. And I say it's Smith's, they changed their name, so I can't remember what it is now, but there's a way to categorize them.
And that's what I'm getting at. Is it a Courtyard? Is it a Kempton? Is
No.
it a autograph collection? I mean, what
Yeah.
type of hotel are you looking at?
The categories, some of it depends on the type of amenities you can provide, you know, whether there's a golf course in it, a spa. I mean, you know, there's not gonna be a golf course here because there's no room. But, so there's different ways to describe it. And some of the descriptions have changed when they changed it because they were talking about mid-level and people thought, well, that's kind of well, that could be upscale, but it doesn't have certain amenities, doesn't have a spa, doesn't have a golf course and things like that. So, but generally when we do development agreements, we look at what fits. I mean, we're not gonna put a high-end resort hotel with $500 rooms here, but whatever category that fits in, and somebody might have a better thought. John?
And John, for the record, your picture looked the same,
Yeah, you haven't changed.
as did Jeff Reeves.
Don't start telling fibs, this thing's on cameras,
Okay.
but thanks for the thought.
Only Matt's gotten.
Thought on the hotel is like you said, a boutique hotel. We actually had the Hilton corporate folks here about a month ago. Spent about a half a day with them, had the chamber involved, had Sarah Callender with Main Street. We did the presentation on everything, then walked all of Broad Street to show them. They really like the project, especially bookending with what's gonna happen across the street in the Bottoms. They have recommended, they've got a couple of different boutique flags. They're from their, I think they call it their tapestry collection, which is boutique.
Yeah, Marriott's is autograph collection.
Yeah, well,
I'll have to see those.
I just remember them saying, we've got tapestry collection, that we've got a couple. Now, the one discussion we had with them is the fact, I think it was real important that the hotel elevations and facade blend in with the rest of the project, because some hotels are real specific. If you don't have our look of our, standard brand around the country, and they said, no, with the tapestry, we can adopt the architecture that blends in with the project, so it's not, something that looks like it's out of place. But they recommended a couple of flags that they had, would certainly think would fit.
Because the hotels and, they do have different flags that fit into categories, multiple categories usually. And so from a development agreement standpoint, we'll usually use the more technical categories because we don't want to limit what brands that they may be able to bring in, what flags they could get here, and then the different variations of the flag. So we use a little bit more generic description.
Right, and I'm not guaranteeing, we're not guaranteeing it's gonna be a Hilton,
Right.
but Hilton wanted to come look, and they came about 3-4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And have interest now. The development group will be shopping not only Hilton, but, some of Marriott product, but we want the best
Yeah.
fit.
Yeah.
That makes sense for the project, but it
Which
will have a blend in, not be something that has a standalone look that sort of looks out of place.
And that generally, in my experience, it generally aligns with the hotel companies. They want to put the brand in that makes the most money that they can, that fits the market. So we have a lot of alignment usually with the hotels when they come in.
But they were really impressed with the concept of what the Bottoms were gonna bring to the table, and plus the way this entire development was gonna lay out. So they were very positive after they came. Followed up real quickly and said, we'd love to get involved.
So if approved, the complete project, hotel, condos and all, what would we say, 5 to 6 years from now?
It was in the
Worst case scenario is 2026.
2026, so about 3 years from now.
Wow. People won't recognize Murfreesboro.
Our intention is, once we start, we're not gonna, they don't want to stop construction once they stop.
The condo portion of that, you said could be 4 or 5
Yes, sir.
stories.
Yes, sir.
And you said you parked everything on, does that affect the ability to park?
We would bring the garage up with it, so we would make sure that regardless whether we got 80 or we got 100 condos, we're gonna make sure we're self-parked here. We don't want to be we'll not rely on the city hall garage or any other lots around us for our parking.
Okay.
Will there be designated parking?
Typically with our condos, because it really has its own, it's almost like it's its own garage, except for it's gonna share it with the hotel and some of that ground floor commercial. So typically, we'll take those top couple of floors and reserve those, gate those off somehow. So there is that exclusivity.
Yeah, so maybe condo or whatever, have 2 parking spaces, maybe.
Probably depends on whether it's a 1 or a 2-bedroom.
Right.
You'd get something with it, and then you could buy extra, so,
Yeah, I know that's what Atlanta's doing.
yes, ma'am.
On a similar project, I was there last week and I was looking at one of the condos and, they did it by how many people, how many bedrooms.
Thank you. Thank you,
Matt,
sir.
you had, I'm sorry, Bill.
Oh, go ahead. No, I was thinking we were through, but that's fine.
Matt, you had said something about if our pre-sales are strong,
Yes, sir.
those first 80 units, that would trigger going to 100 on the condos. Can you define what is strong? Are you saying X amount? Or maybe the development team from a previous project has a timeline on a comparable city, whether it's Huntsville, Chattanooga, name that city.
Let one of HRP answer that, what the expectation there is.
I think the good thing is we've got time because of WGNS that we're gonna be able to market.
Yeah. So they get you on record Yeah, exactly.
Ryan Little with HRP. I think it's going to depend. The good thing is we've got WGNS that we're going to have to build out. So we've got a year of time that we're going to pre-sell and actually put these on the market. And the way that they're financed, there's got to be a certain number before a full floor would convert to those being condos. And part of the agreement is that we will continue to offer these as for sale units throughout the full, I mean, even after the apartments and the project is done, they will still continue to be for sale products.
Historically, when y'all have done this, for say condos, what have you seen typically in, and I know this is a different time right now than 3 years ago, 4 years ago, but
We've
what?
actually got Colliers working on a condo study for us. We're supposed to have that on Monday to actually tell us what the absorption rate would be or the buy rate would be and how many years it would take to fully sell it out. I think the unknowns are interest rates, interest rate environments. Again, we're looking years down the road. We don't know what that's going to look like. And, hopefully it stays good and, ideally it sells out, but it's all based on a pre-sale.
Yeah. Have y'all done this in other cities like Huntsville or Chattanooga or
As far-
Knoxville or?
Usually we're multifamily guys.
Okay.
Typically, that's what we do. On the condo section, that's something that we've heard that is really needed. Some of the local developers that we've talked to on the for sale product have seen the same thing, and they said it should work. I think the concern is the cost to actually build with the interest rates and what kind of demand will be there at that point.
A concern I have, not negative at all, is if we have a recession, and how are we gonna look as a city with all these condos and this hotel? I'm just in my mind saying, I'm trying to visualize as far as an economic standpoint, how are we gonna look? But you can't answer that. This is some of the things in my mind I'm looking at. That's a concern I have. Well, with everything, not just this, but investing in a big project like this and then we go into a big recession. Like I said, it's not negative. It's just, I just thought, wow, what are we gonna look like? And then, of course, I'm not gonna even mention the traffic. That's a big deal. But anyway, I'm just talking out loud.
Y'all do multifamily?
We do.
So, but y'all are gonna do the condos too?
We are.
Okay, so is this your first foray into the condos?
For sale product it is.
First for sale product,
They're
okay,
basically condos and apartments are the same thing.
yeah,
It's just how do you
Yeah.
rent them or do you sell them? That's
Yeah.
just what it's gonna do. And on the condos, you're gonna do higher finishes.
okay.
Those condos are restricted, though. They're going to be for sale, or will they, is it possible to convert them into rentals?
No, they've got a further agreement, they've got to stay as a for sale product.
That's what I thought,
They've
yeah.
got to continue to market and sell.
As a sale product, I got you.
What roughly would would one of the condos cost, let's say a two-bedroom?
Two-bedroom, so I think what we performed is about $350 on the one, $450 on the twos.
And what about the rent, on the rental side?
$1,900 on the ones, $2,300 on the twos.
For the 239, how many one bedrooms
60% are ones.
are ones?
40% are twos.
What percent are twos?
40.
40% are twos.
There'll be no, go ahead.
Go ahead, Madeline.
No three bedrooms, right?
No three bedrooms, just demographic wise, when you're talking about
Right.
downtown, it's not really
Yeah.
a family type of product. So typically we go from the three bedrooms on these type of projects.
All right, any
Plan to do the WGNS moves, and y'all are doing the apartments. Are you doing the condos at the same time?
Yeah, everything we do at the same time.
Same time.
Everything will be, and the hotel too. The goal will be to use the same contractor, and, it's a tight spot, and we all have shared parking, so
Yeah.
it has to all go at the same time.
So, same everybody, same crew, doing the apartments, the condo, the hotel?
That's right.
Everything, okay.
All right, Sam?
A quick wrap-up. Vice Mayor Shacklet. And so today, this is a workshop item. We'd certainly be interested in any comments that you might continue to have, or any discussion about the development agreement, the specific elements in there, and then the purchase and sale agreement. I think the development agreement probably is the more meat of the deal. It's where we talk about the Hometown Heroes and the schedule and timing and the other elements of the project. The purchase and sale agreement's pretty straightforward real estate contract. And so our plan would be to bring that back at a future council meeting, and consulting with Mr. Tyndall, we'll look at the next available council meeting, talk to the development team to make sure that that's consistent and something we want to move forward with. My thoughts are that there's good conversation here today. I know we're absent 3 members of our delegation, and my thoughts are that we would perhaps represent a shorter version of this presentation in front of that consideration of the development agreement, so that the members could have additional discussions and conversations about the merits of the development. With that, I'd be glad to answer your process questions, or we can move on to the next item, whatever the pleasure of the council.
Sam, I've got a question, and this is probably a question that one of the other 3 members would ask. This is the first project, and then you've still got down the road East College. You've got the electric department. You've got possibly the housing authority. And who's not to say other items in the vicinity, you know, just like across the street with the Gold's Gym and that little shopping center. And the question I've got for you is, what's the potential number of units downtown, whether they be apartment or condo?
I think that's a great question, a great conversation, because vision is a blend of what we would like to see and some realities of the market. And so we think that the Historic Bottoms and the Highlands land use plans were part of that visioning statement to see how those areas could convert or would convert. And then with that, there was a market study. It's got some age on it. This team has provided an updated market study suggesting that there's in the order of 600 to 700 residential units available, a demand available downtown. We believe that's across a mix of product types, including for sale and for rent, as well as some townhome, replacements that we've already seen in the downtown market, and then as well as some single-family homes, which we've also seen in the downtown market, redevelopment, reconstruction, and remodeling of those downtown units, and providing that additional 600 to 700 units of housing stock in the downtown market. With that, the market study also identified a potential for additional retail, additional office, and some other types of developments that would be there as a result of the economic conditions and the redevelopment interest in our downtown market. And so we see the vision moving forward as being a mixed-use vision for a good bit of those properties you mentioned, but then a repurposing and reuse of some of the other properties where the building quality and the economics work for those to be repurposed and redeveloped.
I think a question I've got for you is, and not to compare cities, because I know how Jamie hates for us to compare ourselves to other cities, okay?
I did get a message from the mayor of Laverne, by the way.
But the question is, other cities, you know, and I don't know who those cities are, you know, what has been their mix, you know, over the last 5-10 years? When they've done a project like this, did they end up with 50% apartment, 50% condo, 70%, 30%, 20%, 80%? Like, what is that mix in other cities? Because I get it, you've got to have some apartments to support projects and condos until you get comps, I guess is what I'm getting at. Do we know what that is from other cities, whether they be Chattanooga, Huntsville, Knoxville, Durham, North Carolina, Charlotte, North Carolina, whatever that is?
I think that's some information that we could reach out to some of our demographic organizations. So Esri and some of the other business reporting and demographic reporting agencies, you can look at specific regions, specific areas. I know we can get good information. I actually pulled some the other day for a different project, and the rental to ownership market generally in Murfreesboro is about 60-40. 60% ownership, about 40% rental, and that's across all housing types. So we know we can get that information, and we'll endeavor to do that for a couple of what I would call comparable cities. I think Huntsville's probably a good market for us to look at. I think we can't ignore the market in Nashville. What will happen in Murfreesboro, we think will be influenced by what's already happened in Nashville and their effort to revitalize and redevelop their downtown.
I think Huntsville's a good one. We used to live there. Their downtown is like night and day. And, you know, it's a good one to look at.
Speaking of which, I gotta be in Huntsville by 3, so are you done?
I'm done.
All right, I'm done.
As long
Miss
as you don't bring
Avon.
up Laverne, you know, or anything, okay?
Right.
So thank you, Vice Mayor, and we'll be looking for an opportunity to bring this back before this body at next available meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor and Mr. Huddleston. Any questions related to the dashboard, April's dashboard from Ms. Tucker? All right, any board and commission appointments? No? Licensing, none, any permits?
We have a regular permit for a new location for a restaurant at 5525 Franklin Road, Suite F, and a special event beer permit for a Main Street Murfreesboro event on July 22nd. Applicants have met requirements for a permit and are recommended for approval pending final building and codes inspections.
All right. Do I hear a motion or comments or motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion, second?
Second.
Motion second, please call the roll.
Ms. Averwater?
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye. Any bills to pay?
No, sir.
All right. Any other business? Council members? All right. We're adjourned.